Welcome to Executive Insights for Life Sciences Innovators, and thanks for joining us. On this podcast, we'll explore leadership, innovation, and growth in the life sciences sector. I'm Don Alexander, founder of GeneCoda, a boutique executive search firm dedicated to connecting visionary leaders with life sciences companies, shaping the future of therapeutics and scientific tools. On each episode, we'll dive into candid conversations with industry leaders, uncovering insights and real-world experiences that drive success in our industry. If you're interested in presenting as a guest of a future episode, please scan the barcode image at the top of my frame and follow the instructions. Now, I'm pleased to be joined by Dhruv Patwardhan, the founder and CEO of Lumen One. Welcome, Dhruv.
Hey Don, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Dhruv. At Lumen One, Dhruv is building Aria, the reasoning layer of life sciences commercial teams. Before Lumen One, he spent over a decade in commercial roles at GE Healthcare Life Sciences, Cytiva, National Resilience, and Revance. He's a chemical engineer with an MBA and a Lean Six Sigma black belt. He argues the most commercial AI traits on three counts. It asks people to change how they work, it's generic where the work is specialized, and it can't show its sources or admit when it doesn't know. I think we've always seen that one. Originally from Northern Ireland and now based in Boston, Dhruv enjoys travel and spending time with his family. So again, welcome, Dhruv.
Thanks, Don.
We're going to get into your path or your journey, Dhruv, and you spent more now than a decade in the life sciences commercial roles before founding Lumen One. What recurring problem ultimately convinced you that a different approach was needed?
I think the way I would describe it is we fundamentally how we built our organizations, they're built to be reactive, right? We look at every single sales teams, marketing teams, commercial operations teams, any commercial team, and honestly outside commercial too. A lot of information and data sits in their siloed functions. And we have incredibly smart people leveraging this data, but every single system is built around reacting to a customer problem. Um, and I've seen that across, bioprocessing, where during COVID, when we had to figure out how to best supply products to our customers, all the way to service industries and pharma, our commercial teams are incredibly smart and they know exactly how to solve problems for customers. They just lack the ability to get the right context at the right level, the right intelligence out of the systems that they're using every day. So I think there's a lot of systems out there, but nothing truly understands the gravity and the niche workflows that we have, and that's where I kind of built this.
That's where that stemmed from. That's great. So, what else did you learn inside commercial organizations about where valuable market or account intelligence tends to get lost between systems, functions, and people?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's between what a person knows and what an organization can act on, right? So I'll just take an example of CRM, for instance, right? So CRM is effectively it's a record of what happened. It's an accounting active system for activity. So, and if you really think about a CRM, it's quite honestly, it's a 2D system where it's like a photograph. It captures what happened in that instance, and that is it. It doesn't have a three-dimensional context of what the customer is trying to do with that engagement with you. So I think that's where we have a lot of systems that exist today, ERP, CRM, and they all capture a 2D snapshot, but there's nothing that gives that intelligence, which I now classify different to information as how do you act on it at the right time. And that's what's lacking. It's we have the data, we have the information, but how do we use that information to provide the right context, decision-making power for your team members, your reps, to do right by their customers at the right time?
The timing is so important.
Absolutely.
Truth, let me ask you, how has the move from your, personally from operator to founder, I guess, changed the way that you think about what commercial teams actually need from technology?
It's a really good question. It inverted what I believed going into it. So I used to think commercial teams were information poor, right? That they just, and it's classic and corporate, you guys all seen, just provide better data, better dashboards, more visibility, more performance reviews. And I believe that completely. And I bought tools on that basis, right? I work with my teams. Um, and what I realize is they're not information poor, it's decision power poor. So every tool that we've ever sold, it just adds more inputs. It adds more variables, but none of them actually give you more decision-making power exactly when you need it at the time. So the way I would think about it is if your sales reps are surgeons, right? We just gave surgeons more tools to use during surgery. But what they really need is context around, hey, how can I better serve my patient in front of me exactly what I need? So, I keep coming back to Ramp spent like Ramp data, they just published the A16Z that on median, like said average company spends about $12 per AI, per employee on AI. But the top 1% spends about $7,000 on top. And that's a big spread. And
Yes.
I see that spread as I think that's where more decision power as opposed to tool usage. And granted, I think $7,000 is a lot if you don't have ROI, but directionally, I think organizations are spending more on decision-making power for their teams as opposed to just solving one tool or just having AI for sake of AI.
Gotcha. Excellent. Excellent. Let's turn to a little bit more depth about AI and kind of where it earns its place in the sector. There's certainly no shortage of AI discussion in the life sciences. Where do you believe AI is genuinely useful for commercial teams today, and where is it maybe still being oversold?
I'll answer the second one first. I think that it's oversold a lot in terms of what it can do. There's a lot of hype around decision-making power. I keep going back to, sales, our commercial teams, they have a lot of experience. They have a lot of context. They need better decision-making help. So any AI which promises you taking over decision making, I think that's where it's being oversold. The other part is any AI which says, "Hey, I will always be right," is being oversold. I think I firmly believe you want to partner with an AI which tells you it's 94% right, but it tells you why it's wrong, the 6% and where. Because that is where evidence-based execution is key in our industry. Where it's truly helpful is I think giving productivity back. Everyone talks about that, but how do we put an impact on actually executing workflows? So case in point, like if you're using a very simple case of today people use Granola or different softwares to capture meeting notes. That's great. But that's not the output. What is the output that it can get for you, for your workflow and your customers? That's where AI can help. So execution is where AI can help. Grant as long as you have traceability of sources, where it's hype is where AI oversells decision making and tells you I'll always be right.
For our audience, one of the prompts that I like to personally use, and hopefully you can validate this conceptually, Drew, but is to always, whenever you're asking anything complex, challenge the AI model and say, why is this wrong? Or what could be wrong about this?
Yeah.
And so it actually comes back. It's been my experience with much different and much better, oftentimes, answers when it critiques itself.
So, I mean, my personal belief is AI today, effectively a pattern recognition system. It's been trained on past data and it extrapolates what could happen down the road. So if you accept that as fact, I think the way you would use AI is very different. It's not AGI, so you should not be outsourcing your decision making or thinking it would take over a function altogether.
Absolutely. We're going to cover that a little bit more detail, but Let me ask you this first. Life sciences commercial teams tend to operate with highly technical and sophisticated buyers. The sales cycles tend to be longer, and there's a relatively finite account universe. How should that ecosystem change the way leaders think about AI compared with high volume, say sales environments?
I Let me answer that in a couple of different ways. So tactically, I think you need an AI partner. And when I say AI partner, it means whatever system you're using, whatever model, something that is able to capture all the information you need over the life cycle, right? So in services industry or any other, like you could take a year, 2 years to close a deal. On the commercial side, MSAs, you're talking longer. How is AI able to capture that context and continue to give you a different point of opinion? So I mean, a lot of these words get thrown around, but I truly believe context engineering, harness engineering is the most important thing today. As we start to give more information to AI, you want that AI to be able to capture that context, help you throughout your journey over the 1 year or 2 years without giving you hallucinations. The last thing you want is it giving you bad answers incredibly fast, incredibly confidently. So I think that is super critical. In terms of overall strategy, I really look at three lanes: AI that gives you quick wins, that earns you place to continue going down the road. Lane two is a little bit more boring and glamorous, but that is super critical. That is data infrastructure, making sure your data is set up correctly for AI to come on. Last thing you want is just bad data giving faster and more false positives. And then strategy, right? How do you use AI just for internal strategy? But more importantly, that we talk less about is how do you use AI as part of your commercial strategy to give more value-added services to your customers. So think about how your customers are trying to solve problems for their customers and patients, and how can you add value for that through your AI? Um, and then the last piece is optionality. Don't get tied into one particular model. The technology is growing very fast. You need a platform where you can kind of say, hey, I can rip things out, get new models in, new capabilities in without having to retrain everyone. Um, Adoption helps better there too. So I think those are the four lanes I would look at thematically in terms of how any organization looks at AI. Tactically, it's more around just how do you get quick ROI so you can continue down that path.
That's great. Now, I think, emphasize source-grounded outputs and human approval. Back to our earlier point, why are traceability and accountability especially important when AI is supporting commercial decisions in life sciences?
I think it's crucial, right? I mean, it's crucial not just from a regulatory standpoint, as you know, as you're as submitting documentation to regulators, but even internally as you're trying to justify, right? And not only internally you have to justify to your customers how you made that decision, but in even your long sales cycles, if you're talking to someone for a year or 2 years, you need to be able to figure out what decisions were made where, based on what information and sources you had, right? That's one piece. The other piece that's happening now, especially in the service industry, is a lot of customers are now asking their service providers, CDMOs, say, hey, are you using AI? And show me how are you using AI? So it's super critical for service providers to now able to document and have that traceability, which says this is how we used AI. Here are the decisions we were made and why they were made based on that. That auditability is super critical in services, commercial space, and I guess even more critical as we get down to our regulatory pathways, CMC pathways.
Absolutely, anything that's highly regulated. So, what should a CEO or a commercial leader, I suppose, look for to distinguish, I guess, a useful AI workflow from an impressive demo that may never change, the day-to-day execution ultimately?
So I have a little bit of a controversial opinion on this, and I also fully realize I'm a little bit biased because I'm running a startup. But I will try, and keep me honest, I'll try and be unbiased and take off my startup hat. The way I look at this is if a demo goes really well, I would be a little bit skeptical. I'll tell you why. Because our workflows are so hyper specific and niche that if a tool has been created for vast population and that works perfectly on day one for your workflow, it is too good to be true. And you don't want it to work day one. It needs to be something you can bring on. You want a platform which is a partner for you, which says, hey, I'm going to give you the foundation of this is how we're going to solve problems for you on the platform and grow based on your use cases. You think about like Lean Six Sigma and all the process improvement situation, everything starts with, defining the problem. You need a platform that can take you from defining all the way to control and dynamic, where you're not just buying a subscription and then you're dealing with the it not working every day. The other aspect, so I go back to the 4 lanes, right? Your quick ROI, it needs to give you that. It needs to help you better plan your data infrastructure. It needs to help you figure out what your commercial strategy looks like in terms of AI deployment, not just internally, but externally. And then the last thing is optionality. So you're not tied into any vendor. I firmly believe in life sciences, we talk about the security of supply. I firmly believe there's this concept of security of intelligence. You need to capture what AI intelligence you're putting on your organization, and that needs to be secure and not vendor specific.
Absolutely. That's really great. And I don't think on that last point that as many companies probably think about that. I'd be surprised if we think from a cross-platform, I guess, point of view. Um, I don't know what's your experience with that. Are organizations looking at that distributed framework, or do they tend to be more focused on maybe a singular platform?
I think it's a mixed bag because it's growing so fast, right? People are trying to figure out what they want to do with AI, where they want to deploy. A lot of information and expertise on AI is concentrated, so not everyone has access to it. Organizations who are doing really well on their balance sheet, they have they're fortunate that they can try and experiment. I think what I find is organizations who are a little bit, or growth stage organizations who are trying to grow, um, those are the ones who are a little bit more hesitant to try different AI platforms. You have to get out there. Either that's through a vendor or build in. I think the other way I would look at it is as we hire people, AI needs to be a skill set that we hire people for, as opposed to a job title. Um, I know that the front end deployed engineer is a big title today. I have a contrary view. I think we need to have commercial operations people need to know how to use AI. Sales teams need to know how to use AI. Um, Marketing, they all need to know how to use AI. And then as service providers for AI, we need to build platforms where people can use AI without needing to know how to use AI. So I think it's a two-way street.
Great. Let's go into ARIA a little bit. At a high level, how does ARIA, the product, or move from a market or account-based signal to something a commercial team could actually use?
Yeah, I mean, so Aria effectively is a platform that sits across all your commercial systems. So it does exactly all the things I've been talking about, right? So it its primary role is it captures all your context from your ERP, CRM, your financial systems, emails, every single thing, and external market signals, and it gives you proactive insights exactly the time that's needed. So we have some workflows that we can solve. So you talked about, Aria always monitors 24/7 our market signals and proactively tells the sales rep, hey, for your account, for your territory, this based on this signal, you should reach out to this person for X reason. The job for the sales rep is now to review it and approve. Once it's approved, it'll go take action, update CRM, you send you emails, but the user is at the core of it, and Aria is providing context and traceability And then oftentimes Arya will tell you like, hey, this makes no sense. I don't know what this means. I will get back to you. And that's the crucial part of that 6% Arya not knowing something. Arya will tell you that. And that's just one workflow. Our approach is a different partnership that we come to organizations and we say, hey, what are the problems you're trying to solve? What are the biggest challenges you have today? We provide quick productivity today. So you can take that to your board and say, hey, this is it ARIA makes sense. But then our biggest value is working with you in problem solving, data, problem solving, security of intelligence, problem solving, other workflows that we build on the previous workflows. So you're not having to stick together 15 different AI tools. You have one platform where you can grow on. And I mean, honestly, and the other aspect is we are open, right? If the customer says, hey, this is great, but we want to own it, we can absolutely go change from a subscription all the way to a platform, managed platform approach, where it's your data, we'll train an LLM for you on your data, and you manage it. So it's a much more configurable, customer-focused approach than a AI tool you would buy in the market. That was my pitch. Sorry if
Yeah,
that
no, that's good. It's almost an operating system of sorts. Where do you intentionally keep a person in the loop? We touched on this earlier. What kinds of decisions do you feel should remain firmly human?
anything that needs judgment. That is the simplest answer. Anything that needs judgment, decisions are always needs to be with humans. AI again is excellent at giving you context, is excellent at giving you a different point of view, a different opinion, a critique, if you will. But at the end of the day, it's patients' lives, it's our customers, it's getting medicine to market as soon as possible. These are hypercritical to human society, and I would say anything that requires judgment needs to stay with our highly intelligent and experienced staff.
Agreed. Many AI projects stall after a pilot. In your experience, is the harder problem usually the model itself, redesigning the workflow, the ownership, and handoffs that surround that, or maybe something else?
So I'll tell you what it isn't. It's never the model. It is always a combination of workflow we are trying to solve, knowing how to solve that workflow, and adoption. Three things. I would even say pricing is not one of them because if all the other things work, then the ROI is there and it will continue. So when talk about workflow, if you're trying to solve a task, then that is completely non-value added. And if you're trying to solve a workflow, is the workflow the right workflow to solve? And tied to that is who's solving that workflow, right? Did you just buy a something off the shelf that's being built for real estate agencies and now they're selling it to life sciences and you're trying to solve a workflow that doesn't understand the workflow? Has someone spent time solving those workflows in person, right? There's a law which says if you can write a problem down, you've 90% solved it. Has that person solving the workflow done that before? The last thing is traceability. How do we capture that? How do we make sure it gives you that regulatory um, hug, if you will, or giving you that traceability that provides you regulators comfort if you have to explain your decision making to them.
Excellent. Good. Drew, what metrics, I guess, would you use to determine whether an AI-enabled commercial workflow is creating real value rather than simply generating more activity?
I There's no specific workflow per se. So I go back to my days before building Aria, where we would do policy deployment, right? And part of policy deployment, we would say, look, these are the key OKRs we need to get in this quarter. Um, and you would start to look at, okay, whether that's policy deployment, motion counting metrics, whatever framework you used, you would say, look, these are the actions we need to do. These are the KPIs we're going to measure. These are the tactics we're going to use to make sure those KPIs hit. I would add one more column to that to say, what tools are we going to use? And at the end of the day, if those AI tools are not impacting your OKRs, then that is a bad AI tool to use. That's very simply, and I think it's obvious, right? That's where everyone looks at. My only 2 cents there would be don't judge an AI. A good AI tool will not deliver you a market shift change in OKRs overnight. It needs to be that comes into your organization, that grows with the organizations and tweaks with the organization because your organization is different, your culture is different, people use systems different. Case in point, Salesforce is the most customized software in the planet because everyone uses different fields for different reasons. So it's just we want a partner who can do all that with you, as opposed to someone who's kind of saying, "Hey, use my platform and it'll just work."
Absolutely. These systems constantly learn anyway. So let me transition a bit into what you kind of see over the next few years with commercial AI or AI as it applies to the commercial sector. And so I guess what should life sciences CEOs and commercial leaders take away about how AI is likely to change commercial organizations in the next few years?
Really good question. I th so AI is going to democratize a lot of market intelligence. If you look back a year ago, simple things like training an LLM used to be an entire company. That's all they did. Their mode was like, hey, we train an LLM. Now you can train an LLM today. You just run it overnight through Codex, right? And you don't even need to know how to code. So the everything's going to come down to when I look at AI strategy, is it enabling your internal teams to be better? And how do you do that? To better sell to customers. But more importantly, how are you leveraging AI to create additional value in the eyes of customers that your competitors are not doing? And I think that's where it all comes down to workflows. For your customers, how can you better integrate into their workflows, what they're doing for their customers, for their patients? Own the model. Don't go after the model. Don't go after Anthropic, OpenAI alone. I think they're all great, but they all have their goods and bads. Try and figure out how do you create an infrastructure where you can work with all of them more around use cases and problem solving. And then start to build talent internally who understands this technology and can leverage it every day. Um, I go back like this is ancient when calculators might have just come out. Hire people who know how to use calculators as opposed to hiring someone who explicitly knows how to use a calculator. That's a terrible analogy, but hoping I make that point that talent who know or start training people of, hey, how can you do this, right? No longer is days that you need to be a coder to build something or to train a model. How do you hire people or train people internally who can do this on the fly and better solve your internal customers so you can be a better partner for external customers?
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So those are all going to be important capabilities. Let me ask you this, over the, forecasting out over the next few years, where do you expect the biggest gap to emerge between organizations that use AI well and those that struggle with adoption?
The organizations who use AI well, they will better understand or they'll better react to their customer needs. They will very quickly, I mean, today it's a little bit of hodgepodge as some people want to use AI, some people are trying to figure out rightly so where to use it, right? Because they're very specialized workflows. But very quickly, there'll be a gap where some organizations who are using well and they'll better react to market conditions, they'll better react to customers, they'll be proactive in identifying value for customers and partnering with them, adding more value, more vertically, horizontally integrated through AI. And then there'll be organizations who'll be very specific in what they do really well. But because they don't have that intelligence, I go back to that security of intelligence. If you don't own your intelligence or you don't have an intelligence layer, then you continue to be more reactive because you're waiting for your customer to tell you, hey, this is what I need, or the market to tell you this is what I need, and you're reacting to it, while the other part of the industry is driving the change based on identifying value around the corner.
Yeah, far more proactivity than reactivity. That's great. Are there, Drew, any final thoughts or advice that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I'll just say this. Look, there's a lot of AI hype. There's a lot of AI tools, and it feels a little bit inundated with too much AI. There are goods and bads. Fundamentally, if you're using AI to solve problems internally, just start anywhere and then build on it. My only advice would be think from in terms of long-term strategy. And AI strategy cannot just be what AI you're using. AI strategy needs to be tied into commercial. It needs to be a function of commercial strategy, operational strategy. Um, how does AI strategy enable you to accelerate those as opposed to having just an AI strategy? And one thing you can take away is data is huge. Need to make sure the data is ready for AI to come in and help. If the data is not good, then the AI, doesn't matter how flashy the demo is, will not help, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Some say garbage in, garbage out.
In this
Uh,
case, it's just garbage out at a accelerated rate. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So, final question, where can our listeners learn more about you and Lumen One?
We have our website, lumen1.com. You can check us out. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I might try and connect with a few of you guys, try and all of you guys. And yeah, I'm around, and I will say my approach is it's a relationship industry. I don't want this to be just an ARIA conversation. I want to help whichever way I can. Deployed AI, I've helped, I've consulted other companies too. So I'm here to help out whichever way I can.
Super, Drew. Well, that wraps up this episode of Executive Insights for Life Sciences Innovators. I appreciate you tuning in and hope you found today's conversation valuable. If you enjoyed the discussion, please be sure to leave us a review and share it with your network. Please also mark your calendars for September the 14th when we host Justin Byers of Axio Biopharma. Thanks for listening.